back to Investing Ethos. So far, we've only talked about one edtech company that I have very strong conviction for, which is Janison. In this video, we'll look at another one. This is Cluey, and Cluey is a very interesting company that does online tutoring in Australia. And regarding companies in Australia, there's quite a lot of unique startups and unique edtech, health tech companies that are really disrupting the landscape in Australia. And it is very similar to a company in America called Chegg. So if you have an idea of what Chegg is, Cluey is very similar to Chegg. But in saying that, I have not included Cluey in my portfolio as of yet. But after this video, I need to do more research. But this is just a basic summary or a general overview of the company so that you can do further research yourself. So please note that this is general advice. This is the disclaimer that I put in every video. This is not personal advice. Please refer back to previous videos regarding this. What it really states is that if you want to use this information as personal advice, please consult a personal financial advisor. So, the story so far. It's a really interesting story because Cluey was founded in 2017 by a whole bunch of people actually. Mark Rawle was the co-founder and has been the CEO since inception. But there are also the chairman and a couple of other people who have founded Cluey as well. Cluey came about after Mark and the other guys sold two of the previous businesses that they were running in Australia, which was Think Education Group and Open Colleges, because those two are very important businesses that they founded, and they eventually sold those businesses, and Cluey is just another iteration of their passion. What we really find is that the people who are running this business are very experienced, and what they really want to do is they want to integrate technology with tutoring to deliver personalized online learning. Before running a YouTube channel, I guess, I was a tutor. I did mathematics tutoring, and I understood that every student is different. Like when you're teaching them something, some students get concepts really quickly, while other students takes time to understand the concept. So having some sort of an AI that can personalize the learning pathways for a student is extremely powerful. And the current way of doing tutoring is very standardized. Even in a small classroom, what you're finding is that the teacher would explain the same concepts to everyone in the small group, despite some people getting it really quickly while others taking slow to understand the concept. So what Cluey really offers is that they allow the student to learn in multiple different ways. They can do one-on-one tutoring, but also do small class group as well as large class. Different students prefer different things, but what Cluey really is great for is the AI, because what they're doing is that they're recording each session and gathering that data to improve the tutoring as well as improving learning outcomes. So that's what I really like about Cluey at this stage. It is a growth company. It's pretty obvious. They started with $3,000 in revenues in 2018 and have grown to $5 million in 2020, which is fantastic, which is quite astonishing if you think about it, right? Going from 3,000 2 years ago and then 5 million 2 years later. That is definitely a growth company. But also what makes the characteristic of a growth company is that their losses grew as well. Their losses grew from 6 million to 16 million. Founders own quite a lot of shares. We'll talk about that in a bit later. But the reason why they listed in the stock market in the ASX was twofold. First, to raise capital, which is quite obvious because if their losses are growing, that means they're burning cash every quarter. So they need more money from outside investment or from the existing shareholders to keep the business afloat. Otherwise, they would burn out. So the second part of being ASX listed is to provide liquidity, because at this stage, the people who have funded the business are either early investors or the existing founders themselves. So at this stage, if the founders want to sell out, they can, and the only way they can do it efficiently is through listing the company in the stock market. So that's the other reason why they listed. In 2021, they really want to leverage their key strengths, especially direct student relationships. I have not seen them go through third-party providers like a university or like a high school or whatnot to get students. I think they've gone straight to the parents to grow the business, and I think that's really fantastic. What it really shows is that their brand is getting recognized by parents, and parents are happy to make that investment on their child's education. So what do? They are a holistic platform for online tutoring. So what that means is if you look at the top left, you can see what a normal education system is like. The normal education system is shown by the dark orange, where if it's just school only, you're only going to get a certain amount of knowledge in terms of understanding of certain concepts that you learn in class. And what Cluey offers is that light orange part, where they not only provide the school-based type of learning, but also, cutting edge technology as well as expert educators, so that if the kid does not understand a certain concept and things like that, online tutoring is going to help them understand more of it. So that's why the learning gets better as you do online tutoring. But also, if you look at on the right, this is how they define the business, right? They have live online learning, which is one-to-one, and then they have practice and revision. So when a student learns something, they give them a couple of practice questions and examples, as well as some practice exams as well, and then go through it with the tutor. Then they provide the learning insights. I think that's really powerful. So using the AI, using the data analytics, they can determine how the student's learning, what the students think about the tutor, which is really, really important, as well as what the tutor can do. Because me being a former private mathematics tutor, it was hard for me to know exactly how my students are learning. So having that sort of a dashboard would be really, really fantastic, so that I can see what the students really know and what they don't know. And that's what Cluey really brings, as well as the programs. So, when a student's really struggling on a specific concept or a topic, they can provide a pathway for that student to get better. And I think that's really powerful, because the real issue with learning is not like understanding what things that the student doesn't learn. Because the student doesn't really tell you, even as a private tutor, they don't really tell you what they don't know, because they themselves have trouble articulating what they don't know. So having this holistic platform where everyone can see what each one of them are doing is powerful. So, I talked about what they do. So how are they going? Cluey has grown really well. They've grown from a small base, so around about 618 students, to now 16,000, expected to be 16,000 students in FY 2021, which is insane. That is a very, very big exponential growth, especially in a market like Australia, where Australia historically has not been a large market for many startups, many companies. But going from 600 to 16,000 in a small market is quite impressive. And also, because they've grown their number of students, the number of sessions have gone as well exponentially from 3,700 to 100,000. So there's quite a lot of correlation between the number of student sessions as well as the number of active students. So as explained before, the business model is very straightforward. You first attract students either through marketing or through word of mouth, which is, I think, the best way of doing it, to gain the network effects. Then after you attract the students, you provide the service, which is, which should be very good. And if the service is not good, you use AI or you use analytics to make it better. And then you retain students. So you try to make sure that the students come back and back and back. And that's how you can increase the return on investment. Furthermore, understanding this business, you realize that the student sessions are very seasonal, especially in Australia, because in Australia we have the January school break and summer holidays. When the summer holidays occur, there is less tutoring done because there's no exams. And that's why what we find with online tutoring is that the actual forecast is a bit optimistic, as you can clearly see. But in saying that, what we find is that the growth rate is still in the upwards direction when school resumes, because there should be more and more new students going into the Cluey platform. Furthermore, to test if the business is retaining enough students, look at the bottom right. You can see that the number of students per active student is going up. So from 3.7 to 5.5, the longer they stay with Cluey. So the real goal of Cluey is to maintain students for the long terms, because if they do that, more students will do more sessions, which means more revenue for Cluey. On a financial aspect, there's really two things that you can really look at, which is the revenue growth as well as gross margins. So the top line part of the income statement. As you can see on the revenue growth, they've grown exponentially from 184,000 to 6.4 million, which is insane, which is really great. Even though it's from a small base, that is a really good achievement from Cluey. And also the gross margins, it went from 13% to 53%. So we can see that the gross margins are pretty high as well. So there's a lot of scalability in the platform. So looking at it in terms of a guidance, they expect to hit 15 million at the end of financial year 2021. That's their plan. And from a gross margin perspective, they want to retain it around about 50 to 54%, because that's what they believe they can realistically do in the second half of the financial year. So, okay, I talked about the business, I talked about what they do and how they're going, but let's look at it in terms of an investor. So why would Cluey be a good investment case? Well, the first bit is the market itself. Right now, there's around about 3 million students who do online tutoring or have already done online tutoring as of yet. So what that really means is that, remember, Cluey has only targeted 16,000 students. They've only managed to get 16,000 students, and they're getting about $6 million in revenues. There is a whole bunch of more students that are willing to do online tutoring that they have yet to reach the penetration. They have built themselves a good brand with the 16,000 students that they've targeted. Going from 16,000 to 100,000, even though that's a lot, it is technically doable, because that is 10% of the market. So going from 3% to 10% in itself is a massive achievement for Cluey. So what Cluey's real added value is the new students that are coming in, because at this stage, there are always these set number of students that are going to do private tutoring no matter what. That's what the market is like. Furthermore, in terms of Cluey as an overview, you can see that they've pretty much smashed it out of the park for the short time they have been in. They have proven that they are a legitimate business, and they can do a lot of things with very few resources, and they have managed to grow in a very competitive environment. Because if you think about it, the tutoring market in Australia is very fragmented. There are many players like Matrix Education, Talent 100, and also the private tutors that do maths and science. So for Cluey to build a brand when there are so many recognized market leaders and market players is quite impressive. And I've seen a lot of ads in social media about Cluey as well. So I can see that if they can target me, they can probably target people who are younger than me, as well as target parents. So that's the first case. The second case is even more important, and this is what really kind of tips me over the line in giving Cluey the tick of approval. It is the macro conditions. Right now, Australia, in terms of education, has not really grown in the past 100 years. The education system has been the same, and while technology has grown, the education system in Australia has not changed. So therefore, the learning outcomes go down. As you can clearly see on the bottom left, the top 5 countries in the world that have, scored really well in the PISA-based test for schools, they're ahead of Australia, and Australia has dipped below the average. Australia has to really rethink education. And what's insane is that the government has spent more money on education as well. So this macro condition of education gap, as well as poor learning outcomes in Australia, allow a company like Cluey to exist. And that's what makes Cluey a really attractive investment case. In terms of the board, this is what I mean. This is why I really like this company, is because if you look at the chairman and the CEO, as well as the CFO, they've all been part of Think Education and Open Colleges. So they've known each other since since the inception of other companies. And Mark Rold was CEO and co-founder for both Think Education and Open Learning, Open Colleges as well. So what is really fantastic is that they all have the same amount of experience, like 20 plus experience. We even have a chief learning officer in Dr. Selena Samuels, who have experience in making digital online frameworks. And I think this is just a stellar management board, and they have what it takes for the business to grow. In terms of ownership, basically the founder and chairman owns about 20% of the shares. The rest are owned by either existing shareholders and like existing early shareholders, or owned by employees as well. Insiders own about 30% of the business, and the others who own the business are early existing shareholders. And if they want to liquidate, they can, but I don't think that's a wise idea. I think they plan on liquidating at a higher valuation. But in saying that, it's a very stable board, stable ownership, founders own shares, so it's very aligned. So I did a massive talk about Cluey, but let's just break it down into a couple of takeaways for you to do more research on and for you to understand this business. The first being, it's an exceptional management team. As I've explained before, it's a very tight-knit group with a lot of experience. They know what they're doing. The chairman, CEO, and CFO have ties to Think Education and Open Colleges, which have all been successful businesses and all been sold out as well. So they've sold at a premium. So if you bought Think Education and Open Colleges at back when they were listed in the stock market, you would have done very well. Cluey is just another iteration of this. Secondly, the large addressable market in Australia alone what makes it an attractive business. Because remember, there are over 3 million students that are willing to do tutoring from their private tutoring or from another organization. But that 2 million students, that's an area that Cluey can definitely target. So if 16,000 students bring $6 million revenue, imagine what 2 million students would bring for Cluey if Cluey managed to hit the total addressable market. Thirdly, and this is the most important reason why I am very invested in Cluey, is the Australian education system is broken. When COVID hits, schools were shut down, and the government basically have admitted that kids lost about a year's worth of education or maybe more. So that's why online tutoring is really important. And that's why a company like Cluey exists, so that if there are things that stop a student's learning, there is always plan B and C. And Cluey, I feel, is like a plan B or C company. But in saying that, Cluey on top of school is quite a really good proposition for the parents to fork out a lot of money for their kids' education. So that's basically it, everyone. This is my summary, a detailed summary of Cluey. That's what makes it a very exciting proposition for investors. I will do a valuation on basically the future. Obviously, the future is unpredictable. But in saying that, with the amount of information that they've given out in the prospectus, there is a way in which we can potentially value this business and determine the success of the business long term. So far, at this stage, they're recently listed in the stock market, so there's not a lot of research done. And if there's only research done, it's basically from brokers who put this company in the stock market, so I don't really trust them. So I'd much rather do the research myself and put out a video on the valuation. But yeah, this is just basically a quick summary of Cluey. Hope you guys enjoy it. Please leave a like, subscribe, or comment to see what you think about this business. And thank you for listening.